Here at the Downtown Women's Center is where most women in Skid Row actually come to.
I was not considered chronically homeless, even though I hadn't lived at.
Most of the women tend to be middle-aged, elderly, and Black. That is the #1 demographic, not just year after year, but decade after decade. I was displaced to Skid Row almost 7 years ago. I lost everything. After losing my job, I ended up losing my home subsequently 2 years later after not being able to find sustainable employment. It was really, really hard for my family to look at and to take in what I was going through. And subsequently, long story short, I ended up homeless. There were women who were talking about that, you know what, I had nothing going on in my life. I was doing everything right.
Things were going well for me. I had a great job in a 1-bedroom apartment, doing well, contributing to society. But with the cost of living, I lost my place and I was on the streets for a bit.
I could no longer afford to keep up the rent. I didn't have mental health issues. I wasn't drugged.
I was working and I got sick and the doctors took me out. That's how I became homeless. I didn't fall into a category. I wasn't physically or mentally disabled. I wasn't drug or alcohol. I didn't have dependents. I wasn't a refugee. I wasn't displaced.
Most people who come into LA who are seeking a presidential nomination, they literally fly into LA and then they take their motorcades up into the hills and they bypass Skid Row altogether. Although we may be displaced into poverty and homelessness or living in poverty, we are still constituents.
If we're unable to address the foundational systemic dynamic of this, we leave ourselves open to solutions that I don't think any of us want. And there is some reporting that the president wants to use police to sweep people off the street or warehouse them in facilities out of sight, out of mind.
I was told that there was no hope for me. And that's one of the things that we have to also be aware of, is really trying to build hope into people while they're going through this. The Downtown Women's Center is really a connection for the women here in Skid Row to actually help empower them and move their lives forward. So these are some of the dynamics, again, that we have to bring in the human aspect of talking about who the people are rather than pathologizing who we actually are.